The University of Wollongong would like to pay respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today and pay our respect to elders past, present, and future. We would also like to extend our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present here today, if any. Okay, so today's session is all about future of financial planning in the post-banking Royal Commission era, which has raised a lot of issues related to ethics, regulatory compliance, and also opened up future opportunities of the job for the graduates. So we are very privileged to have our prestigious guest speaker, who was once our student in early 2000, the first decade of this century. So Simon Robinson, welcome to this session. Thanks for sparing some time out of your valuable job. Simon is currently working as a senior financial advisor at RSM Financial Services Private Limited. So he completed Bachelor of Commerce majoring in financial planning in 2008, and then he became a certified financial planner in 2013. And you can see he's passionate about helping his clients to build the wealth and achieve their career aspirations and wealth aspirations. So myself, Seerat Ali, you all know I'm senior lecturer in finance and academic program director of financial planning. So I'm co-hosting today's session with Dr. Sarah Wang, who is our wonderful sessional academic, a subject coordinator of advanced financial planning. She's also a program coordinator of CABLE. I would like to now welcome Simon to deliver a wonderful talk that he has prepared and give us his insights from the industry that he is working in. Simon, up to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sirat. Welcome, guys and girls, for all who are here. Thank you for coming along and joining in. Hopefully the session today will be valuable for you, just to give you an understanding of the landscape we're in at the moment, what your requirements will be if you'd like to pursue a career in financial advice, and the opportunities available at the moment. I think it's a pretty exciting time in the world of financial advice. There are challenges for sure, but there is certainly some big opportunities on the horizon. So it is really exciting for you starting out your careers now, or looking to start your careers now. And I'll cover off on a few points that really highlight the opportunity in front of you. So let's just bring up our screen. Importantly, I know a number of people will be listening to this at a later time, but for those that are here, please feel free to jump in the chat box, yell out if you've got any questions along the way. I always find it's a little bit easier when there is some interaction for these presentations. Makes my life a little bit easier as well, so please feel free. I can't see the chat box while I'm presenting though, Sarah, so if you can just yell out if anything pops up in the chat box, that'd be great. Can everyone see that first slide? Yeah, wonderful. So actually, hang on, can I see the chat box? There we go. That will be helpful. So I work for a company called RSM. We are an accounting firm, first and foremost, and financial planning is a key element to the advice that we provide for clients. I think we are number 6 or 7 in Australia in terms of accounting practice size. We've got offices all over Australia. In New South Wales, we are in Sydney, Gosford, Wagga. I'll include Canberra, in Goulburn. And we've got offices all over the country. So we are a big firm, and financial planning is a growing element of this firm. So it's a relatively new practice. I think we've been around for probably 15 years now in the financial planning space, but we have grown a lot over the last 5 years and looking to continue that. And I think that dovetails into the opportunities that we'll talk about later. The sky is the limit in terms of what financial planning might look like in the next few years and going forward. So it is an exciting time. But before I get onto the exciting part, we're going to talk about ethics and compliance, which can be a little bit dry. So bear with me through this, but it is incredibly important that we talk about ethics and compliance, because the landscape has changed dramatically for financial planning. I've been doing this a long time now, and from where I started to where the industry is today and how far we've pushed towards this being a true profession is astounding. The change is so dramatic and so stark, and it is continually changing. But I think the Royal Commission really, it was absolutely necessary, and the changes that were made for the benefit of the consumer, I think, were brilliant. To be honest, yes, it's onerous on us as financial advisors now with the compliance requirements, but it was absolutely necessary. And the changes that have been made and how we have to do business now, I think gives consumers so much more confidence that they are getting good quality advice, that they are getting value for money, and that it is worthwhile going to see an advisor. The level of trust that these changes have built and are creating in the industry is just so crucial to the advice relationship. So we'll talk about that. I'll go through what happened with the Hayne Commission, what the state of play was like before and after. We'll talk about the advisor code and ethics, which will drive how you engage with clients. You have to follow this code of ethics. You have to abide by the values that are set out, that were set out by FASEA and now monitored by ASIC and the Financial Standards Board. They have to be core to how you conduct business. So you need to be across those. The financial advisor education and professional standards are really crucial as well. The education piece, anyone that's dialing into this subject is probably going to be okay from an education standpoint, but your degree won't be the last piece of education that you need to do along the way if you want a career in financial advice. And then we'll touch on the opportunities ahead, which I've already said, endless opportunities ahead for you guys starting out your career. And then finally touch on the need for advice, because that will keep coming back to how we take advantage of these opportunities and how you can see that this is not something that's going to go away. The need for advice will be there, and you as the next generation of advisors will be at the forefront of that. So hopefully this agenda and what we cover today will be of real value. As I said, please reach out if you've got any questions along the way. Don't be shy. Otherwise, we will get right into it. So the Royal Commission. Royal Commission into Misconduct in Banking, Superannuation and Financial Services Industry commenced in November 2017. Took a few years to finally get through it all the submissions, all the hearings, but the final report was handed down in 2019. The key findings were widespread misconduct by advisors and financial institutions in the way they serviced their clients, and in some cases did not, in many cases did not. So it was a real eye-opener, and this was a lot of the things that were found in this report were obviously a pretty open secret in the industry. So people knew that these practices were going on, but we needed a shift like this. We needed this to really weed out those advisors that weren't doing the right thing, to call out those institutions that weren't putting their clients first. And it was incredibly successful at doing that. So some of the misconduct that was found to be quite rife in the industry, financial institutions, their intermediaries, including advisors, selling products and services that were inappropriate for client circumstances, charging customers for services that either weren't provided, in some cases never intended to be provided, failing to identify misconduct or ignoring it when misconduct was found, and institutions failing to deal with customers fairly and openly, particularly in regards to remediation. So where clients had called out, hey, you have made an error here, you've given me poor advice, or you haven't done what you said you were going to do, institutions were just brushing clients off and saying, too bad, we've done what we needed to, and that's it. So it wasn't a great environment for consumers. Now, I was around through this period. As Sirat said before, I was working while I was at uni, as a couple of you seem to be doing now. I was seeing this. Thankfully, the practice that I was in was certainly one of those that stood up and said, no, I'm not going to do business the way that the broader industry does. We are going to be transparent. We are going to be clear with clients, and we will not be doing things that where there could be a perceived conflict around why we recommend what we recommend. So I had a wonderful grounding in a small firm on the South Coast in Nowra, and it put me in very good stead to get through this Royal Commission. However, I mean, we knew that there were other practices doing this. We knew that the big banks were doing this. So finding that change and triggering that change was something that was probably at the time too big an issue to really combat as an industry. But this Royal Commission, it came in and just blew that out of the water, which as an industry and a profession, I think was a wonderful thing, as painful as it was to go through at the time. In nearly all cases examined through the Royal Commission, there was a key element through all of them being that financial advisors and providers were not acting in the best interest of their client. More often than not, it was to create profit for the service providers and increase remuneration for advisors. I'll give you an example of that one shortly, but there were some real problems in the industry, obviously, which led to the Royal Commission. Out of the Royal Commission, 76 recommendations were made, many of which were taken up and have subsequently been legislated for the banking financial services sector. Some of the key recommendations, obviously I'm not going to put 76 of them in here, that will take a little bit longer than an hour to get through, but the key ones: requiring clients to approve any ongoing financial advice fees on an annual basis and to ban conflicted remuneration. So every single year now, the internal practice at RSM is that in January every single year, we write to every one of our clients and say, this is what we have charged you over the last 12 months. These are the services that we have provided you over the last 12 months. This is what the next 12 months are likely to look like based on your circumstances in terms of fees and services. Would you like to continue with us? Our clients have to sign that letter every single year. It's called a renewal notice. They must sign within 90 days. If they do not sign that letter within 90 days, we turn off our services, we turn off our fees, and we have to re-engage with that client if they want to continue with our advice. For that change, the practice that I was working in when the Royal Commission came through, we were already doing that. So that wasn't a big change for me personally, but it has changed the nature of the financial services engagement dramatically since that has come in. So that is a key one. Now, conflicted remuneration, I'm going to touch on that for a moment. And this gives you an example of the kind of activity that was happening in the background for financial advisors. Sorry, there's a question there. The fee thing you're referring to is the renewal within 150 days. Yes, that is the one. Sorry, 150 days. We don't give our clients that long to sign back on. So internal practice for us, we want it done. We want clients signed on, and we don't want to get to a point where we've then got to refund fees for any particular reason because we haven't disengaged that client in a timely manner. So we have shortened that period. Now, conflicted remuneration, sorry, to give you an example. So if you think about they're owning this product, the advisor holds shares in that licensee. If you as an advisor were to put clients into this product, you would be paid part of the administration fee on that product. Then those administration fees would go towards the profit of the licensee, which would then be paid out in dividends to you as an advisor. So you can see the vertical integration. Now, on top of that, the more money that you put into that particular product as an advisor, your share of the admin fee started to increase, which is called a volume bonus. So you can see that the kickbacks on kickbacks on kickbacks, all of these things contributed to, is this actually in the client's best interest? No, it's not. On top of that, the licensee said, well, if you've got X amount of money in this product, you now become a diamond or platinum member, which means we will fly you to our conference overseas and you will get all these other benefits as well, paid for by the licensee. Now, in terms of conflicted remuneration, it doesn't get much more conflicted than that. The great thing here, and the practice that I grew up in, that I started in, the advisor at the time said that's not okay. We used a completely different product. We didn't have any clients in the licensee-owned product at that time. So that was it was a very strong theme for me to take into my career, is how important it is to be transparent, to remove those potential conflicts wherever you can. And then you've got to talk to clients about any potential conflict that you have. Now, that's all enshrined in law now, but at the time, it certainly wasn't. Requiring financial advisors to disclose any lack of independence when providing advice. So the key terms calling yourself an independent advisor, you need to be very, very sure that you are an independent advisor there, because that is enshrined in law, the independence piece. So some people get around it by saying, non-aligned as opposed to independent, but they are very strict on calling yourself an independent financial advisor. Establishing a new national disciplinary body for financial advisors, including the education requirements. So that was FASEA, which is no longer with us, but FASEA came out of the Royal Commission. Introducing civil penalties for trustees, requiring the AFSL holders, so Australian Financial Service license holders, to investigate any misconduct, to have a stricter complaints procedure in place, banning of hawking, superannuation and investment products, and there's a number of other recommendations that came through. But I think the key things that came through there were the education requirements and the ban on conflicted remuneration. So those two things, in my view, were the key changes, and they were great changes for the consumer. The real challenge through this period, sorry, I'll just step back for a moment. The real challenge through this period, because it is a theme a bit later on in the presentation, as an advisor, as a licensed financial advisor going through this period, it was incredibly challenging. It doesn't matter how well you did business, it didn't matter how much you looked after clients, how much you had their best interest at heart, how little conflicted or no conflicts of remuneration you had, we were all tarred with the same brush. I vaguely recall studies coming out throughout the Royal Commission when we were getting bashed on every news channel, every paper around we're all crooks and we're all cheats, and you can't trust us as far as you could throw us. We were pretty much in line with used car salesmen in terms of the level of trust that we had in the community and with consumers. And I probably for 3-4 years after the Royal Commission, I had a number of initial client meetings with clients, and verbatim, they said, "How are you going to rip me off as a financial advisor?" I tell you this to give you an understanding of where we have come from as an industry, as a profession. When the Royal Commission came through, 2019 was the doldrums. It was incredibly challenging to do business. It was really tough to build that trust with clients. And I think the changes that the Royal Commission made have helped that greatly. And that's where I get into the next slide, because all of these changes were focused on the best interest duty. So when we're providing advice to retail clients, you must now prioritise the client's interest. You must have their best interest at heart. If you don't, then ASIC come down pretty hard on that these days. They have more powers to come after advisors now, and they aren't shy. It might take them a while to find you if you're not acting in your best, if you're in your client's best interest, but when they find you, the number of advisors banned in the last few years have gone up dramatically for not acting in clients' best interest. So that's something that you must have in mind as you step forward in your career. It has to all be about your client. The obligations are designed to ensure that retail clients receive advice that meets their objectives, their financial situation and needs. It must be for them. It must be appropriate for them. We do so much training. We have to do ongoing training. Our licensee, so RSM, we're self-licensed. Our compliance team, we get regular training on making sure, and the biggest thing in our advice audits is, does your advice tie back to the client's goals? Does it satisfy their objectives, and is it appropriate for them achieving their goals? They are very, very strict on that for us internally, and so they really do. They nail us. Our compliance team are really strict on it, and it's all because of this reason. Did any clients leave your services once the Royal Commission had come through? Daniel, I'm trying to think back at that point, because I was an associate advisor at that point. So for me personally, I didn't really have a client book at that time. The clients that I was working on for a senior advisor at that point, we may have lost one or two, but for the most part, we kept our clients because the firm that I was working in were doing the right thing. We had clients signing on every year. We disclosed our fees in every single review report that we had. We disclosed all of our fees, all of our insurance commissions, everything. We were very transparent with how we went about business. So it was a lot easier to sit down and have that conversation with clients when they're like, how are you ripping me off? Like, should I be concerned? It's very simple for us to go, no, let's talk about your fees. Let's talk about the service that you're receiving. So it was pretty straightforward for us at that point. There were some tough conversations in there, but because you had emotional clients, concerned clients, but for the most part, it was relatively straightforward. The building clientele rapport again, after the Royal Commission, that was very challenging for new clients, as I said. So I'm not kidding when I say clients came in and said, how are you going to rip me off? I need help, but how are you going to rip me off? So yeah, some very challenging conversations through that period. So acting in your best interest, and if you want to read more about it, RG 175 is a great place to see, to read about best interest duty and some of the obligations there around it. I'll let you read that in your own time. But it's all about that best interest duty now. We must act in our client's best interest. Oops, wrong way, sorry. So it really became a fork in the road moment, the Royal Commission, because it was either get on board or get out. And we'll talk about the getting out phase very shortly. But it was really aimed at rebuilding trust with financial advice. Now, this study on the right here is a more recent one. I think it's from April this year. I'm pretty sure it's off the back of that report. But 48% of individuals surveyed still noted trust as a key barrier to advice. So if you look at don't trust financial advisors there, 19% of participants said that. Worried the advisor would rip me off. Verbatim clients, that is exactly what they have said to me in the past. And there it is in the study. 15% of people responded or had that as a barrier to advice. And then, yeah, worried that they're losing money because of what they told me. These issues are key. Building trust in that relationship is so important. The Royal Commission just destroyed so much of the trust in the industry, but these best interest duties, the values and standards that we'll be going through shortly in this presentation are helping to reverse that. We've still got a long way to go. We are still not looked upon all that well in terms of trusted professions, but we are climbing the ranks, which is great. Before we move on, best interest stuff, do you believe acting in the client's best interest? And yeah, look, you could do all the right things. You could be acting in the client best interest. You could still get into trouble. for advice provided. You just have to do your very best. You know, there are occasions, and you will find this when you start working, there's conversations you're going to have with clients that you will not win. They won't want to listen to the advice, or they will be too emotional to take advice. There will always be situations where it doesn't matter what you do, how well you provide advice, you may get caught out. You just have to do your absolute best, hand on heart. And if you do that, then even if you get pinged for it, if you get caught up for it, you can still walk away and say, look, I did my best. And that's all you can do. But yeah, I have seen a couple of cases where AFCA have come out and said, yeah, no, sorry, you didn't do the right thing. It's like, I did my best. Okay, so, but if you can avoid things like the conflicted remuneration, if you really spend the time to get to know your client and understand what their goals are, why those goals are important, what their primary concerns are, I don't think there's going to be a major issue for you in that regard, because you'll understand your client and your advice will be so aligned with their interests that you should never be up in front of AFCA at that point. So, yeah, but it is, it's a good question and a good point there, Benjamin. Thank you. So yeah, the Royal Commission now, big fork in the road. We've got a long way to go, but I'm really pleased with how far the industry has come along. I think the change has been dramatic. I caught up with a few advisors. You know, I was invited to a round table recently, and to talk to peers around the traps. You know, everyone is very excited about how far we've come and the position that we're in as an industry at the moment. Really excited about the opportunities ahead, and thrilled that the next generation of advisors, so you guys, are going to be incredibly well educated. You will come through the industry when this is still, when this piece, the values, the standards, the education is so important that you're going to get an amazing grounding in dealing with your clients in the best way possible. So it is a really exciting time, and I think this is only going to get better for advisors. We'll never be as trusted as like a doctor or the a fireman or anything like that. You know, they're right up the top, because we will get calls wrong from time to time around investment. You know, that's only human, and you expect you're going to get those wrong from time to time, which will create some unhappy clients. But if we get our strategy right, and for the most part we're getting those investment calls right, we will have happy clients and we'll start climbing back up that board. So yeah, exciting times, but that you will have these conversations with clients as you start your career. Any other questions on best interest in the Royal Commission before I jump into the new normal? No, nothing else. Great. All right. So your professional standards, ethics, regulations, and compliance. So part of the Royal Commission, financial advisors now have a code of ethics that are made up of these 5 values and 12 standards that we must abide by when we provide advice to clients. So how we provide advice, we must always act in a way that demonstrates trustworthiness, competence, honesty, fairness, and diligence. This is what we are measured on now. If we are brought in front of any of the regulatory bodies, these values and the standards that we'll go through shortly is how we are measured. So we must act in good faith. We must keep our knowledge, skills, and our education requirements must be up to date. We must be continually learning and improving our knowledge. We must be honest and transparent. I can tell you, if you are not honest and transparent with clients, you will not last very long in this industry. You have to. You will be found out and you will lose all credibility, and there goes the career down the gurgler pretty quickly. So if there's anything that you take out of this, honesty, transparency are absolutely critical when you're dealing with clients. You must be fair across your clients, and you must be diligent with your client work. all of these things then flow into these standards. And you can see it's incredible that this needed to actually be written into a legislative requirement, into a code of ethics, that advisors were not exhibiting these values in dealing with clients. That's how bad it was pre-Royal Commission. But now we have this, it is very clear the expectation set around providing advice to clients. You must do these things. And there are very few excuses that will get you out of doing these things. In terms of the standards, there are 12, and they have a couple of different focus areas for these standards. So for ethical behaviour, you must act in accordance with all relevant laws. So your regulatory requirements, your legislative requirements, all must be abided by, and you cannot attempt to circumvent them intentionally or otherwise. You must act with integrity and act in the best interest of each of your clients. Pretty straightforward, right, so far. Standard 3 is probably the one that has caused the most conjecture in the industry. You must not advise, refer, or act in any other manner where you have a conflict of interest or duty. That conflict of interest might be around fees. It might be where you have dealt with clients and maybe they're getting a divorce. So how do you deal with those clients? Is there a conflict there? It may be where, for RSM, for example, we have accountants in the firm who look after my client's tax side of things. So we have to manage a potential conflict there. That's not a big one, but where there is a potential conflict between advice, we have to manage that and disclose that with the client. If you're talking about insurance, is there a conflict there because you are receiving commissions from an insurance policy? That's why there is so much conjecture out of this one, because it's not very clear around where the boundaries are. That one has been under review for a very long time. I don't know where they're going to settle on that. But bear that in mind, any potential conflict may cause you a problem along the way. Okay, so you need to be really clear around how you manage that conflict of interest. Standard 4 is so important. You must have the client's free, prior, and informed consent. And the burden is on you as the advisor to prove that the client has free and informed and prior consent when you provide advice. I've got a couple of clients actually that love, whenever I call them up and talk to them, Simon, just go and do it. I don't care. You do what you want to do if you think it's the right way to go. And I have to have the conversation with them every single time. I can't do that. I need you to understand why we're doing this, what the risks are, and you need to basically explain back to me why we're doing this strategy. It can be incredibly frustrating, but if I'm not doing that, I don't satisfy standard 4. And if I get audited on that, I fail. So it's really important that you spend the time talking to your clients and make sure they understand why we are doing what we're doing, why we provide the advice, and how it ties back to their circumstances, their goals. Standard 5 must be in the best interest of the client and appropriate for their circumstances, and you've got to be satisfied that the client understands the risks and costs associated with that. And just having those costs in the statement of advice is not sufficient for your client to understand what they are paying. You again must talk them through that, you must explain that to them, and they must understand what they are getting into. You must take into account the broad effects arising from the client acting on your advice. This is a really interesting standard as well, because when you're talking about providing full strategic advice versus scoped advice, where does this standard sit, or how does this standard sit in terms of the effect it will have on your strategy? Again, I have this conversation regularly with clients where they'll come in and say, I've got, X amount of money, got $1 million. Can you just invest that for me? It's like, well, I can, but let's talk about how this might affect your broader circumstances first. If you put $1 million, for example, in a superannuation fund and you go and invest it, but you're a retiree and you might want that cash in a couple of weeks or in 6 months, well, that potentially causes you a problem. What if you have this investment and there is something else that might pop up, like I want to buy a house now. Well, all your money's invested. You didn't tell me about that. What about, okay, we're investing in this this portfolio and I've got an overseas income coming through. Well, what does that mean from a tax perspective? Have we considered whether the structure that you're using is appropriate? So you need to consider these other issues and the client's broader circumstances before you provide advice. It's not just as simple as here's $1 million, go and invest it. Okay, so standard 6 is another one that catches people out quite a bit. The client must give free, prior and informed consent for your fees, commissions. They must know what they are paying you. They must sign off to say, yes, I'm willing to pay that before you collect $1 in fees or commissions. Our process at RSM is we provide a written letter of engagement that says this is how much you are going to pay us if you would like our advice. We do not start on that work. We do not send a bill until such time as that letter of engagement is signed. Why we do that? Standard 7 for starters, but also transparency. Client knows exactly what they're getting into and can understand what they're getting into, can ask as many questions as they like before we start the advice process. So that one is really important. And it's amazing how many clients I had or I looked after pre-Royal Commission who had come to me at the time and said, I went and got some advice. I thought it was just an initial consultation. They wrote me this piece of advice and now I owe them 10 grand. And I didn't know that was going to be the case. It used to happen regularly. Now that can't happen. You fail standard 7 if that's the case. You must ensure that you keep good client records. One of the joys of being a financial advisor is you will spend a lot of time writing file notes because it is so important to have those discussions, every phone call, every meeting that you have on file, so you can show that you have done the right thing by clients. Particularly where clients might be unhappy for whatever reason. Share market's tanked, I'm not happy that I'm invested. Okay, let's talk about that and let's file note it. So keeping records is incredibly important beyond just having the statement of advice and the fact find on file. And you must recommend products in good faith with confidence, not be misleading or deceptive for standard 9. So they're all around quality process. And it's just making sure, again, it keeps tying back to this best interest duty, making sure that what you're doing is appropriate and reasonable for the client. Finally, professional commitment. You must develop, maintain, and apply a high level of relevant skills and knowledge. I'll talk about the education requirements shortly. You must cooperate with ASIC if they come knocking. It's much easier if you do. Not that I've had to deal with them yet, but I know a couple of advisors that have had spot audits by ASIC, and they just come in and take what they want. So you may as well help. And standard 12, you must uphold and promote the ethical standards of the profession and hold each other accountable. So I mentioned before that it was an open secret pre-Royal Commission that there was vertical integration in fees, that advisors were not really acting in the best interest of clients, or at least putting their own interest on par with the client by saying, well, this advice is appropriate, but if I put them in this product, I'm going to get paid a little bit more as well. So let's do it that way. That can't happen anymore. I am responsible for essentially dobbing in other advisors who are not complying with the standards and values. And I can get in trouble if I am found to have known that advisors are doing the wrong thing and I have not reported them. So we keep coming back to best interest of the client, best interest of the client. All of this is so focused on making sure we do the right thing for the client, which is brilliant. It's onerous, as you can see. There's a lot of standards that we need to meet here, but it is brilliant that we have these in place because it gives the consumer confidence that we are now acting in their best interest because we have to. There's no way around it. anymore. So that is the standards and values that you must abide by. You are obligated to abide by as you will step into the world of advice, as you become financial advisors. But let's talk about what you need to do before you get there. Before we even get to talking about the values, before we're worried about the 12 standards, you must satisfy the new education requirements. They've been in for a couple of years now. What you need to start is a bachelor degree, which I assume you're all doing now, the financial planning degree, commerce degree through University of Wollongong, which is wonderful. That will get you your minimum education requirements. If your subjects, like if you do a different major, for example, and your subjects don't quite line up for the bachelor's degree, you can go and do a grad diploma as well, and bridging courses to bring yourself up. If you've got a relevant degree, you can do your master's in financial planning as well, and that will get you to the minimum education standards. All the approved qualifications are online if you want to have a look at it, so the link is there if you would like to go and find it. It's pretty easy to find as well if you just Google it. But you can go and check out, confirm that UOW is on the list. I did go and have a look when I was putting together the presentation. It is there. So yes, the minimum education standards are there. That caused a lot of grief for more experienced advisors, because prior to the Royal Commission, you could go and do a 2-week course and be called a financial advisor and go and advise clients. And I'm not even joking, 2 weeks was all you needed. Think about the responsibility that you have as a financial advisor. Is 2 weeks appropriate in terms of training? Not one bit. So this, I think, was great in terms of pushing us towards a profession. As I said, a lot of experienced advisors were really unhappy about this because they may have done that 2-week course 20 years ago. I did feel a little bit sorry for some of them, because 20 years experience is just such a lot to lose out of the industry. And after 20 years, you have seen and dealt with pretty much everything you're going to see in this industry. So I felt so sorry for those guys. And I was nearly one of them, to be honest. University of Wollongong, my degree, they were like, yep, we'll pass it, but if you had started any earlier, you wouldn't have got it. So I would have had to have gone back and do a master's or grad diploma. So I was nearly in that boat. But yeah, for guys and girls that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years and told you have to go back and do a master's or a grad diploma or a bachelor's degree while you're trying to run a practice and look after clients, incredibly tough situation. But in terms of setting this profession up for the future, this is brilliant that we now have to do this. Once you've done that, you then start preparing for the financial advisor exam. You must do this exam. You must pass this exam before you can call yourself a financial advisor. All set under the standards of 921B, the Corporations Act. You are tested on your practical application of your financial advisor's knowledge across regulatory and legal compliance, the Privacy Act, anti-money laundering, advice construction, and ethics is a big one. This exam is 3.5 hours. You get 15 minutes of reading time. You get some statutory documents, so it's open book. I can tell you it is not an easy exam. Thankfully, I passed first time, but it is quite challenging. And the fail rate, it's improving, but the fail rate was really quite high when this exam first came out. And I think now it's still pretty high on first attempt, the fail rate. For second and third attempt, the pass rate becomes much, much higher on second and third attempt. Yeah, Benjamin, I think it would have been around that mark. Like it was high in terms of the number of advisors that failed. And that has contributed to how many advisors have left the industry over the last 4 years since the Royal Commission. So it's not an easy exam, but it's one that you can get through. You just got to prepare for it. You just need to know what you're talking about, know your stuff, and know how to find it as well, and you'll get through that exam. But it is a challenge. Now, this is a new one, and I think this is great that they brought this in, the professional year. Now, you can do this while you are, you have to do the exam before you start your third quarter of your professional year. But you can do that. You can do your professional year and your exam concurrently. But essentially, you need to undergo a professional year, which means you've got to do X amount of hours. You've got to do X amount, so 1,600 hours. 100 of those hours need to be structured training. You have to have a supervisor. Your licensee needs to monitor you, your advice, your engagement with clients. So again, previously, pre-Royal Commission, 2 weeks, go and see clients. See you later. You may never have had a conversation with a client around their financial needs or financial planning, and you would have been cut loose to go and do what you would like. Now you spend a year honing your craft and learning how to engage with clients, how to draw out those inner aspirations and draw out those goals about what's important, and then actually writing and presenting and implementing that advice. So it's an excellent thing. It's a bit more hassle for you guys getting into the industry, but it will set you up so well for your career as an advisor. Once you've got through your approved degree, once you've got through your professional year, you've passed your exam and you become an authorized financial advisor, think about how well you are set up for success. How you will be able to sit in front of a client and say, I have done all of this to get to this point. And how much trust does that build with your client that you know what you're talking about? You know how to do this job and you will make good decisions for that client. That's what this professional year, that's what the education requirements are all built to do. And they will set you up incredibly well for your future career. So you become a financial advisor and you think, great, never have to do any more study. You are wrong. We continually have to study. It's in the standards. We have to maintain our knowledge, our skills. 40 hours minimum continuing professional development every single year across a minimum number of different categories. So I've got the categories there: technical, client care, and practice. Within these categories, there are subcategories, and you must satisfy points within those categories. So it might be for your technical, it might be superannuation strategies, pension strategies, investment strategies, and Centrelink, for example, aged care. So you will spend the rest of your career learning, which is great, right? I love that aspect of it. It can be painful at times to try and get your hours up when you're busy, but you are always learning. You're always getting better at what you do, which is wonderful. But the learning never stops. So don't think that when you graduate, you're done, because it will continue. Any questions on the education requirements? No? Great. Excellent. Let's talk about the opportunities, your career. Some of you I see or I hear are working already, which is great. Having a start in the industry, getting your foot in the door is excellent and will do you wonders. It did me wonders when I was studying, because I was able to tie the academic and practical aspects of financial planning together, and it was excellent. So for those of you who are working, well done. For those of you who aren't, I would highly recommend trying to find some practical experience if you can manage it. But before we start, hang on, there's a question here. Liam. Yep, agree. Great time to join. Yes. Right. I'll come to that comment around minimum experience shortly. So I'll come back to that one, Liam, but thank you for putting that in the chat. Starting out as an advisor, I always talk to my clients about the why with a financial plan. Why is this important? Why is this goal important? Why are you here? To get advice. Oh, you've got this concern. Why is that a concern for you? Uncovering the why is so important, and it's absolutely critical for your career as well. Why do you want to be a financial advisor? What is it that's pushed you down this path? You need to have a clear view of why. For me, I'm happy to share my why. Part of it, I grew up on the South Coast. My parents got divorced when I was quite young. I saw the financial hardship that they went through as single parents. I was one of four, looking after the kids separately. That puts a lot of pressure on families. I wanted to, personally not be in that position when it was my turn to have a family, in terms of the financial stress that comes with it. But B, I didn't want to see my family in that situation. So if I could do something that would help, that was really important to me. If I can do that for clients, I find that incredibly rewarding. That is why I do what I do, to help people, to take away that anxiety. And look at the stats. I mean, this is 2016, so this is pre-pandemic. Think about what these stats might look like now. 66% of adults feel that worries about money make them feel fearful, anxious, or depressed. Over 60% feel that they are physically affected. So their body is affected by financial stress. 75% argue about money with family or partner. And 90% avoid social functions to avoid spending money. I'm sure there's a few introverts that are like, I don't care about the money. I'm happy to avoid the social situation on the call here. But you can see how important financial well-being is for people, how much anxiety it creates. And then a fund manager recently, did a study, and 49.9% of clients reported that financial advice improved their mental health. How much benefit can you give to clients, to individuals, by giving them good advice? Improve their mental health, improve their physical health, because you're improving their mental health. You can have such a big impact for your clients. But honestly, if you're not there, if you're not there for the right reason, if you don't have that why, then you've got to ask yourself, is this what you want to do at the end of the day? And it doesn't need to be my why, obviously. It doesn't. You might say, well, look, for me, I just think it's a really interesting job and I love the strategic side of it, and that's what gets me going. Great. If that's your why, fine. It's all going to be unique to you. But have that at hand when you go through this process. The opportunities here, I've been talking too much, but the opportunities here, 5.6 million Australians are looking for an advisor or are considering getting advice. It's approximately 1 in 3 unadvised Australian consumers looking for advice. If we can build that trust up in the industry, will that 1 in 3 turn into 2 in 3? Possibly. People are looking for advice. It is untapped in Australia. There's a huge opportunity here to build up and get more Australians financial advice. And that they're 2022 numbers from Advisor Ratings. The primary reason people don't see us as financial advisors, why they would stop, we've already seen this table already. Cost is one, and I'll come back to why it's costing so much more to get advice, partly the compliance, but also you'll see in a moment. The increased cost of compliance has gone up by 41% in 4 years since the Royal Commission. That is very hard for some clients to stomach. There is also obviously a trust issue that we've talked about already, but we're making improvements there. From a cost perspective, there are ways that advisors are trying to make advice more cost effective. We're going to need some legislative help, which is in the works at the moment. So you will have seen news around trying to make advice more obtainable for clients. So that is something that may well change in the short term, but they're the key hurdles. The other reason it's becoming so expensive and why it's such an amazing opportunity for you guys, the next generation coming through, Look at the decline in advisor numbers over the last 4 years. We're down from nearly 30,000 or 28,000 down to 17. It's actually, numbers came out last week. We're down to 16, bit over 16,000 in advisor numbers. It looks like it's going to be around the 12,500 advisors from 28,000 by the end of 2025. And that's with new entrants like you coming in to the industry. The opportunity here to plug that gap is enormous. Think about how many of those advisors, if another 5,000 advisors leave in the next couple of years, all of their clients are going to be looking for someone to help them, to someone to provide them advice. You can be that person. I can be that person. That's why I'm excited about it, because more people are looking for advice. There's more opportunities to provide advice, and we are becoming a scarce resource. So the opportunities are very, very exciting here. Unfortunately, it is, a lot of those advisors leaving are because, older guys, older girls don't want to go back and do more education. Some of them just don't want to deal with the compliance burden now. I think it's too onerous and they're leaving. But it creates space for you to come through and take up that position, pick up those clients, provide advice. So it is incredibly exciting, the year ahead. In terms of the need for advice, normally I'd say if we're in an auditorium, hands up who's got a superannuation fund. Everyone will have one at some point. Alex just graduated, got their first job. They're on 55,000 plus super. I've indexed their salary by 3%. They're getting 7% per annum after fees. What will it look like at 60 if they do nothing? But what about if they take their knowledge and go, you know what? I understand the value of compounding returns. I'm going to put a little bit extra into super every month. I've actually just realized there's a typo there, but an extra 200 a month creates an additional 695,000 in retirement. That's the benefit that you can help your clients obtain with what is pretty simple advice. So if you start thinking about some other more complex advice that you can provide clients, you can make an incredible difference to their life. Superannuation, 10.5% at the moment. It'll be 12% in a couple of years. This is your reality, guys. Starting out in your careers, if you work to the age of 60 and you can get 7% per annum after fees and taxes, that's your reality for superannuation. Could be even better. So this is why it's so important. Look at the size of the asset. You want to make sure that your clients and individuals are making appropriate decisions about their superannuation and about their investment strategy and about their structural situation. All of those things are going to be so important. The other thing that's actually critical is that an advisor, and I have had to do this a lot over the last 3 years with COVID, help your clients make prudent decisions. What I hated seeing through COVID was mid-20-year-olds, and I had a few call me up, say, hey, can I get some money out of my super? At the bottom of the pandemic crash. Taking 10, 20 grand out of their super at that point because they could. And it wasn't always to live, to help them live. It was, I'm going to go and buy myself a new car or a new TV. I had those conversations with people at barbecues, at the pub. The effect that had on a 25-year-old, I did the maths on it, the effect that would have on a 25-year-old by the time they get to 60, that 20 grand turned into roughly $230,000 at retirement. That is the negative effect that it would have had on their superannuation. I had clients ring me saying, I want to sell out, sell some shares. Just be patient. Markets will recover if you give them enough time. I had one client say, no, you've got to sell something. They came back 6 months later and said, I'm really sorry, I should have followed your advice. You can help people make prudent decisions about their money. about their circumstances and about their goals. And the value add is enormous. It's hard to quantify at times, but it can be incredible. So where to start? What you'll be looking for when you jump on Seek. You might be looking for a graduate or graduate paraplanner role. You might be looking at a financial planning or advisor or administrative assistant role to get your foot in the door. Liam, where companies ask for experience, put your name in anyway. Because yes, experience is helpful. That's why I'm saying if you're not working at the moment, if you can get a day a week, some experience, that will help. But it's just about getting your foot in the door. That can be the hardest part, but I can promise you, demand for talent is high at the moment. We are looking, you've seen the advisor numbers. We need help. RSM, we're going through our graduate recruitment program at the moment nationally. So we're looking for accounting, insolvency, everything. We are looking for graduates. I think last year we took on like 90 grads across the country. In Sydney, we're looking for one for our team at the moment. And I know in the accounting side, they're looking for plenty. So, and we're not the only firm out there. So there is demand for you as a graduate at the moment, as an administrative assistant, as a paraplanning assistant. Go find it and apply if you want the job. Okay? Don't let the experience piece hold you back. Try and get your foot in the door. And there are a number of companies out there that will help you prepare for grad interviews as well. So if you feel like you want the extra help, maybe you don't feel as polished in an interview, you can go and find these companies that will help place you and help train you for that interview. Okay, so have a look around and see what suits you. But yeah, I would encourage you guys, apply. The worst that's going to happen is they say no and you move on to the next one. So apply. And to give you an idea, when I moved to Sydney, I think I applied for like 30 different positions. I ended up going for about 3 or 4 interviews before I got a gig. But I was just apply, wait till you get the call back, wait till you get the interview. If you get one position, great. If you get to choose from multiple, even better. But you've got to get yourself out there. And yeah, Benjamin, great point. And you know what? Actually, before I got my first job in Sydney, I was working in pubs. Still got a job. So just get yourself out there. So the opportunities are there, guys. They're absolutely out there. You just got to go and find them. And it's a super exciting time to be part of the industry. It's a really exciting time to be starting your career. You know that you're going to get a really strong grounding in dealing with clients, in providing strategies, providing advice. You will have a great grounding from you have to do the best interest piece. You know you're going to be learning ongoing. It's just super exciting. So hopefully all of you, will soon be joining us in the advisor ranks. And yeah, good luck. If there's any other questions, guys, please jump in. I know I've run a little bit over time, so sorry about that. I do get a bit excited about this stuff. But if you've got any other questions, I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer and answer anything. And obviously, if you want to reach out separately, please feel free to do so. If you're looking for a job, I will palm you off to HR, but I'm happy for you to reach out to me if you would like to know a bit more about our grad program. So please feel free.
Okay, so it's an excellent presentation, Simon. You have covered everything that is required to be understood about financial planning. So I think this is a great resource that you have provided us. And this recording will be helpful not only for students attending today, but I believe this will be an important resource for us to use in future lectures, as well as guiding our students who are looking for financial planning jobs and education pathway. So I really enjoyed personally whatever you have covered. I could really see the synergy. So you started from Banking Royal Commission, then you opened up what were the issues there, recommendations came, code of ethics that FASIA gave us. And then you moved on to the education and professional standards that are required for new entrants. And then you opened up the job opportunities, and that was really good ending. I think we can have some questions if there is any. If anyone would like to speak, we have a lot of questions through the chat. If anyone would like to open up the mic, we can have that question. Otherwise, I will ask one question just to
start us off, Sirat. Make everyone else a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and I can see you're very passionate about your job, about your career, and I could see in your talk. Just a question about the experience that you are talking about, that there were many experienced financial advisors, they could not survive in the industry because of the education and exam and other requirements. Currently, there is a consultation going on. ASIC conducted that consultation that they are considering to consider the 10 years of experience with a clean track record in the past years. So if there is a 10-year track experience and clean track record, they may be exempt from some of the education requirements. So what are your views about that?
Yeah, look, it is a really interesting one. I think that will save some advisors. I think there will be a few that will latch onto that if it becomes law, and they will hang around. I think for a lot we've kind of missed the boat on that one. I think a lot of the older advisors that saw at the time the writing on the wall that it's either uni or bust for them. I said, you know what? Bust it is. I'll go and start another career elsewhere, or I'll go and do something else. And I just don't think we'll see those advisors come back into the industry. I think a lot of them will have moved on and decided that something else is for them now. So for those that are kind of on the precipice and holding out for the next couple of years until those requirements are fully in place, and you have to have those education, the relevant degree. There might be few that hang on as long as possible and hope that the 10-year rule will come in. But the numbers are still down so far. Like, you look at how many advisors have left the industry in the last couple of years, and it's just astonishing. So even if we stop those, let's say the bleeding is stopped by 50%, for example, they're expecting another 3,000 advisors to leave next year. That's still 1,500 advisors that are no longer in the industry. There's so much space for growth. There's so much space for new advisors to come in. There are so many clients out there looking for advice and needing advice. It will help, and I hope it does, because I know a lot of good advisors who have had to go back and do a diploma or do a master's. I know a number who left the industry and just went, "Oh, I'm too old. I'm 55 years old. I don't want to go back to uni. I'm done." Like, they've retired, basically. They're, ridden off into the sunset because of these education requirements. So it's not going to fix the problem. It might help a little bit, but it's not going to fix the scarcity issue that we have with advisors at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for your insight. Just one question from students' perspective. The first question was from industry perspective, but I just wanted to close up this session from students' perspective.
Yeah.
So the financial planning is all about building the wealth for the clients. Okay, so helping them improve their lifestyle by improving their financial aspects. So, and if you look at the SDGs, the first SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, is about end poverty in all its form everywhere around the world. So we can see there is a clear emphasis that finances is important, and some students are saying that in modern world, the financial aspects lead towards, if you don't manage them well, that can lead towards divorce in the relationship.
Yeah.
So we are talking from client point of view, but what about graduates when they enter into the industry and after a couple of years and then 5 years, 10 years, how much salary, what is the range of salary they can get? Because we have to look after, like we are passionate about the job. We're really
Yep.
motivated. We want to spend a lot of time. But in terms of finances, how it look like for the fresh graduates, and
Yep.
then on the track for 10, 15 years, what can be range? It of course depends on the job scale and other aspects, but what are your views on that?
Yeah, look, so there's quite a wide range, to be honest. So graduate salaries might range from 50,000 a year to 65, 70, could be plus, could be including super. If you can get 70, good luck to you. But I know they're out there, but they are very difficult to find, those particular jobs. But there is a higher demand at the moment, so salaries have increased a little bit for entrance into financial advice. Then it will depend on your progression at that point. So it will be up to you how quickly your salary increases from there. An experienced advisor, so 5+ years advising, you could look at anywhere from say $90,000 per annum up to 150, 160 plus bonuses, plus, if you become a partner in a firm, for example, there's profit share as well. So it can be a very lucrative career once you are established and you have a book of clients and you are doing a really good job with those clients. It can be lucrative, but that will come with time and experience and your drive to actually get to be an advisor. Like a paraplanner could be on anything from 60 grand up to 90 grand or more. And a paraplanner is just someone who writes advice documents and works as essentially a bit of help for, well, a lot of help in my case. My paraplanner is excellent. But they're the ones that are helping the advisor deliver the advice. My job as a financial advisor is to design the strategy, think of the strategy, and maintain the client relationship and the client experience. My paraplanner's job is to write the statement of advice and make sure it's spot on for exactly what I want and improve it in some cases as well. So they've got a really key role, and that's why the range can be so big. A junior paraplanner might get 60 grand a year, or a senior paraplanner might get 110, 120, depending on the role. You might find that you get into advice and go, oh, actually, I want a compliance role, for example, or I don't want to be client facing, or there's all these different roles that you can carve out in the industry for yourself, and they will all have a very different range in terms of what their salary looks like.
That's really good. So I can see the financial advice sector is financially rewarding and emotionally satisfying, because if you help clients to build up their wealth, that will and free up from the financial stresses, that can give an extra intrinsic benefit of motivation and self-actualization.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that is it for today. I would again like to thank you, Simon, for your wonderful time. You have allocated 1 hour. We went a bit beyond that, and we can see his passion is driving the timing, and I really appreciate our wonderful students who were with us today, and those who will be watching this session recording. So if you have any feedback, dear students, please feel free to send it to me directly. Any remarks for Simon, any positive remarks, of course, that would be really good to have.
Happy with constructive remarks as well, guys. Please don't be shy. You develop a thick skin as a financial advisor, so please don't be shy with constructive feedback.
Yeah, I think, Simon, you have been wonderful, and you came last, I think 2 years ago in a panel talk, and then I went back to you. You can see it's a very constructive message to you that you did wonders in the first talk. You did wonders today, and we hope that you will join us in the future as well. So with that, if we can all clap silently, maybe through the emotions for Simon. So that is really good. Okay, so
Wonderful. Thanks, guys, and wishing you all the very best with your studies and career. I hope it all goes well. Good luck to you all, and yeah, hopefully see you around the traps soon.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care.